Former US President Donald Trump, who represents the main threat to Joe Biden before the presidential elections in November 2024, has warned that he will be arrested on March 21 and has called on his supporters to protest. Prosecutors in Manhattan are preparing to formally charge Trump. The situation is unique. For the first time in US history, a former president will face criminal prosecution. If they can get him, they'll be one step closer to coming after you and taking your freedoms. And obviously, that was their plan all along, said Trump's son, Donald Trump Jr., on Twitter. In his address, Trump claimed that America was becoming a third world nation and dying, that American places were dead, and that left liberal radicals i.e. The US Democratic Party and its most active electorate falsified the presidential election in favor of Biden in November 2020. The politician also mentioned the numerous arrests of protesters near the White House, who are being held captive like animals while criminals and thugs are allowed to roam the streets. As no crime can be proven, the Manhattan Prosecutor's Office is basing its allegation on an old and completely debunked myth. The Republican Party candidate and former US president will be arrested on Tuesday. Protest to get our country back. The case for which Trump intends to be arrested is related to porn star Stormy Daniels. In 2016, Trump's lawyers allegedly paid her $130,000 not to speak about their relationship. The New York Attorney's Office believes that the former president violated electoral law in this way, since Americans had the right to know about the candidate's alleged liaison with an adult film star. At the same time, two federal investigations are spinning against Trump regarding his calls for protests at the Capitol on January 6, 2020 and the possession of classified documents. They are being conducted by the appointed special prosecutor of the International Criminal Court in The Hague, Jack Smith. Despite the fact that the US does not recognize the Rome Statute and the jurisdiction of The Hague, the pressure is related to Trump's active election campaign against the backdrop of inflation in the US, bankruptcies of the largest American banks, and the allocation of hundreds of millions of dollars from the budget to support the Kiev regime. In case of a Republican victory, Trump promises to carry out purges in the State Department and the Pentagon, says Americanist political scientist Malik Dudikov. The better Trump's ratings are, the more they will try to drag him through the courts. After all, Trump's return to the White House will result in a grand political crisis for the Washington establishment, said Dudikov on Telegram. According to political scientist and former State Duma deputy Sergei Markov, dictatorship is coming to the main country of the Western world. Trump remains the most popular politician in the US and has every chance of winning the 2024 elections. The coup in Ukraine and the support of the clearly repressive Kiev regime by Washington clearly show that the current US authorities are becoming the enemy of democracy. This could result in civil unrest even within the United States. In the US, a civil war between blue megacities and coasts supporting Democrats and red rural America voting for Republicans is possible. But more likely, dictatorship will develop in the US, of course, in the style of the 21st century. That is, it will repress everyone in the name of democracy, Markov notes on Telegram. Tech mogul Elon Musk claims that if Trump is arrested, he will win the 2024 election due to the potential for protest among his supporters, as demonstrated by the Capitol riot 3 years ago. All riot 3 years ago. It could also sway those who are uneasy with the Democratic Party's dictatorial tendencies onto his side. Republican Senator Marjorie Taylor Greene agrees that Trump will win even more than he's already going to after his arrest. However, influential Republicans are consolidating around the discredited Trump. Speaker of the US House of Representatives Kevin McCarthy called the situation an outrageous abuse of power by a radical prosecutor who orchestrated a political vendetta against Trump. I instruct the relevant committees to immediately investigate whether federal funds are being used to undermine our democracy by interfering in politically motivated prosecutions during an election, McCarthy said on Twitter. The situation also worries other US presidential candidates who sense a growing threat from the Democratic Party, which is desperate to cling to power. For example, businessman Vivek Ramaswamy, who intends to run for president from the Republican Party, stated that the charge against Trump would be a national disaster. It is un-American for the ruling party to use the police to arrest their political opponents. This will become a dark moment in American history and undermine public trust in our electoral system itself. I call on the Manhattan District Attorney to reconsider this action and abandon partisanship in order to uphold our Constitution, said Ramaswamy. Potential Trump supporters are beginning to unite and are already prepared to resist the authorities, based on the failed experience of the Capitol riot. High-ranking Democrat and former chairman of Biden's projects at the National Finance Fund, John Cooper, has sounded the alarm. Trump knows his cult followers. By urging them to protest, reclaim our nation, he is implicitly calling on them to create disorder on the streets. This time, law enforcement agencies must be fully prepared for the possible violence from far-right extremists. This threat is deadly serious. Cooper panics on Twitter. Earlier, Republican Governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, accused Biden of betrayal.